So we're starting off. Before we get to the discussion, as I mentioned in my presentation, the component of school leadership and planning and assessment definitely sets the tone for the rest of the collaboration. And I think it's the most challenging in the sense that you're competing for the time that a lot of times the leadership doesn't really have. So you want to make sure that you can carve out some time, because I think it'll make things easier down the line, both carve out time to get on the same page at the beginning and then checking in regularly to make sure that there's some deep thinking about how the resources and the guidance and monitoring and support that we can provide. We want to be clear on how it can help what you're trying to accomplish at your school. Yes, it is technology. Yes, it is certain things that are focused on technology, but it is only going to be successful if it could be tied into what's already happening at the school to improve academic achievement, other initiatives that are happening. I learned by experience that in a lot of underserved communities, there's no shortage of programs. And sometimes managing those programs could be as challenging as not having some of those programs. So it just takes time. So the more that we can have that time with the leadership to really coordinate and be in sync, the more successful we're going to be. And we do provide a stipend for the administrators to help us with that process, because we do call on them to help us make sure that things are moving along, that professional learning is moving along, that the parent trainings are moving along, that things are happening. As the leader of the school site, that's one of the most important roles for them. Um, I want to ask you, what guidance would you give to those that are interested in implementing school to home in the future? What kind of advice would you give them so that they can get the most out of this collaboration?
I think what you said actually right at the beginning, I feel like you just like led me right into that question, which is something that Mr. Abarca and I have been really working on at the end of this year, is trying to figure out the idea of having lots of partnerships. We're a new tech school, which is a project-based learning school through the New Tech Network, similar to like the Buck Institute that a lot of us have heard about. And so we work with that group. We also work with a group called Partners in School Innovations, and we also work with School to Home. And so trying to figure out how all of those initiatives kind of align, and how can you use some of the things you're already doing to work interchangeably. I would say, right, with the technology piece, right, with what School to Home has to offer is a lot about like the SAMR model, which is the idea, right, that we're not just giving technology to students or replacing technology with a book, right? So a book or a textbook, and now we're just giving a laptop with the curriculum on it. That's really learning how to use that technology. And that actually goes really, really well with like PBL and with project-based learning, along with the way that we use technology in our classrooms. And so seeing how those overlap with each other, and then how does one program support the other, is really probably my biggest advice, because otherwise it does feel like there's just like a lot to do here and a lot to do here and a lot to do here. But yet if you start to see how they kind of combine and overlap, that'll make your job a lot easier as an administrator.
Thank you, Lauren. And, I do want to say that we have a lot of resources and content, but like I mentioned previously, a lot of times what makes a difference for teachers is what their peers are doing. And that's something that we can only do better with the collaboration of our school partners, because I think all of our school partners do some things very well. And the opportunity for them to come together and say, hey, what are they doing here? What's happening there? What are the teachers doing? How are you handling, what are other schools that have that project-based focus? How are you guys doing that? And how does the technology fit in? That is invaluable. And the opportunity for us to connect those schools with each other it makes a big difference. Mr. Abarca, I do want to ask you, what did you learn the most from your role as the leader for School2Home? What is one of the lessons that you learned and one of the things you enjoyed the most?
Yeah, I would say that my biggest takeaway going into next school year, similar to what Lauren has described, which is thinking about how do I make sure that the different partnerships are speaking to each other and not removed from the work that we're doing. And that said, not just at the sort of macro level, but even at the micro level. Early on with the different, I mean, even, right, you have different panels to go to. You can go to the parent panel, you can go to the student panel, the tech panel. So all that said, sometimes the different conversations that were happening within each team, I wish that I would have done a better job of sort of kind of unifying these different conversations and having like monthly meetings about that work. So then we're working right as a team to make the work happen. And we didn't catch on to that until like halfway through. So that's something that I want to work on going into next year as far as like the learning that I got. And to me, the most, I would say, exciting part was the access to the resources, both for the curriculum that's outlined for our teachers and also outlined for our students and our families. Like there's some really great resources that School2Home offers to think about, and then thinking about like how do each of these resources contribute to our school goals and like what would be most meaningful for the community that we serve. So doing that thinking, and then trying to figure that out is always exciting to me. So that's, I think, to me was the most rewarding aspect. And also just the guidance that we get, right? We had a chance to talk to Denise, who's here. Hey, Denise, good to see you. Talk to you, Agustin. So sometimes some of the questions that were posed to us got me thinking. I'm like, oh, wait, I had thought about this approach. Maybe now let's think about this other approach based on the guidance that we got from School2Home.
Thank you very much. Dr. Clyden, what would you say you're most proud of your work with School2Home this year? We can't hear you, George.
There we go. All right, thank you. So I've been at Fisher a little over a year and a half, and last year was my first year with School2Home. And like some of the takeaways and that the changes that we made this year is I felt that maybe our staff wasn't as engaged, right, in the process and not fully understanding everything that School2Home and its partners can bring for our community. So this year, we made a switch, right? So one of my things that I'm proud of is getting more teachers involved that share leadership, getting more, tying it into our new tech program and to our Verizon technology. So those are some huge things that we have shifted. And so now our teachers and our community know what School2Home, what SV, Silicon Valley Education, what they bring for our community and for our students, where I feel in the past it was a little iffy, right? But I echo what everyone else has been saying, though. It was very important for us to tie all of our initiatives together, because that's how the teachers would be able to see it and be able to apply it, right? If they see it just as another thing to do, another entity here, versus what we got going on here, it wouldn't work. And so this year, I think we've been able to really wrap it up in a nice bow. And it has to do with bringing my leadership team on board and then filtering the message out to the rest of the staff.
Well, just before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you to the three of you for your leadership, and it's essential, and we couldn't do this without you. And if new schools come on, we're going to call on you to be a mentor for the schools. So I'm just giving you a heads up, but thank you for everything.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for listening.